I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is the Raising Happy Teens podcast, where you learn how to successfully guide your teenager into adulthood without losing your sanity in the process. Let's do this. Welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I invited my friend Jo Figueras on to talk about ways we as parents can strengthen our intuitive abilities and start parenting from a place of self-trust. This episode was so fun to record. We talk about all kinds of things. We talk about numerology, synchronicities, empathic abilities, highly sensitive people, connecting with your higher self and a higher source, and how to develop your intuition to be a better parent and a more fulfilled person. Jo is, among many things, a psychic medium, intuitive practices mentor, and the co-host of the Esoterix podcast. I'm going to put links to everything that will lead you to Jo and help you learn about Jo in the show notes. Before we dive in, a couple of things I want to touch on. One is, in the coming weeks, as I mentioned in the past, you may be noticing a shift in the things I'm talking about to be more parent-centered. Because one thing that I've learned over the years in working with hundreds of parents and teenagers is that the big shift with kids really happens when the parents start doing the work. I've been doing the work myself, and I'm still doing the work to this day. I'm also doing a really great training, planning on bringing a lot of that information here to the podcast to help you out. So you may be seeing some shifts here on the show. So stay tuned for that. That being said, let's dive into the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Jo. I am so excited to have you here as a guest, and I can't wait to get into this topic. It's something that I just love talking about myself and love learning from you. So before we dive in, let me give you a chance to just introduce yourself and tell my audience who you are.
Hello, I am so excited to be here. I love doing podcasts, in just talking about what I do. But my name is Jo Figueras, and I'm a spiritual medium. I am an Akashic records consultant. But really, what I do is I like to guide people to develop their own intuition. That's really what sort of lights me up. It lights me up when I'm helping people align with the things that light them up. So that's really, in a nutshell, what I do.
Yeah, and you are just barely touching upon the areas of expertise I know you know about. I have listened to your podcast, the Esoterix podcast. I've learned so much from you, and I wanted to have you on today because, as you know, my audience is parents of teenagers, and something that I know as a parent myself and someone who works with a lot of parents is that there's a lot of confusion that comes with this area of life and this season of parenting. And a lot of parents come to me just feeling lost, confused, not really sure how to support their teenager, how to help them, or even how to help themselves. And so when I thought about how to guide my audience to trust their intuition, and then I listened to your podcast, then one of the many episodes, I was like, you know what? I need to have her on because this is something that I think a lot of my audience can learn about, is how to really understand and connect with their intuition. So tell me a little bit more. First of all, what does that even mean? Connecting with your intuition. So let's just start there and then we can dig into the how.
Connecting with your intuition simply means to listen to your gut, trust your gut. Communicate with whatever higher power you believe in, and then let that feel it in your body and then trust it. It's interesting too, because a lot of my clients are either people that have teenagers that are empathic. They have empathic abilities. They're very sensitive. They don't necessarily have to be on the spectrum, but they are very, very sensitive to energies and feelings and emotions. And so they're like, how do I parent this child? Right. And then also, once that child leaves the nest and you find yourself an empty nester, then the parent is like, I've been a parent for so long. Now I don't know what to do. And then it's like, okay, well, now is your time for you to remember who you are, what you came. You have a path and a purpose. So it, that's all tied into just learning to listen to your gut, and then also definitely how do you help this sensitive child?
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's absolutely true. So many of the teens that the parents that come to me and my kids as well, I speak about this on my podcast all the time, are highly sensitive, and the parents are finding that they themselves are also highly sensitive and never
Yes.
actually realized it,
Yes. Yes, that's where
right?
the child gets it from. It definitely is, I guess what you would call genetic. When you break it down to the soul level, a soul is either going to choose that parent because they are sensitive and can
Mhm.
offer them the guidance that they need to learn how to be a sensitive human working through the world, or it's that duality that I need to heal and step into my sensitivity. So, from the concept of like reincarnation, I'm going to choose a parent that's closed off to that or doesn't support that, because that sort of just fosters a little bit more growth.
Yeah, and that all makes total sense. And what I've found in my own personal life is that I learned more about myself in having kids than
Yeah.
I ever knew about myself before. So it's like I've felt lost and confused on how to parent this highly sensitive child. And it forced me to kind of turn things around on myself and be like, well, what
Yes.
is it I need to heal in me in order to be able to support this person? And I grew more through that. And that's definitely an approach that can benefit both the kid and the parent.
Yes.
And to go back to trusting your intuition, you mentioned it's a gut feeling.
Mhm.
What's the difference between a feeling and just a thought that you have in your mind? How do you know the difference?
I break it down to you're either inspired and lit up by something or you're fearful of something. So intuition is expansive. It's exciting. It causes you to feel inspired. You are energized by this thing. That's your intuition. It's also a knowing. You don't know how you know, but it's a very specific feeling, a knowing. There is no doubt involved in it. Fear is everything else. If I don't do this, something bad is going to happen. If I do this, something bad is going to happen.
Mhm.
Um, or if you're picking up on, your body is saying, that fight or flight, run, or get out of there, or, you might hear when you're driving, stop, turn, whatever. So there are some subtle nuances to it, but the easiest way to decide, is this my gut telling me, or is this fear? Are you expanded and excited, or are you fearful and worried that something bad is gonna happen?
So many parents are functioning from a place of fear because they are
Yes.
afraid that something bad is going to happen to their teen, or they see a path being taken that scares them. And so
Yes.
they really only know how to function from that fear. And I'm wondering if you have any tips on how somebody can start to tap into their intuition if they recognize that they are functioning from a place of fear.
That's definitely, there's so many options out there. I mean, number 1, I recommend, any sort of inner work to get to the root of that, right? Therapy or shadow work, or, just talking it out with your partner or a close somebody that you trust and love. But getting to the root of your fears. When I first started this work, I remember there was a little blurb that I would always refer back to. It's not only about rooting out your fears. We all know what we're fearful of. When it all boils down to, it's safety,
Mhm.
right? But it's about finding out what those fears are eating and eliminate that food source. What are those fears feeding on, right? Trauma, wounding, triggers, all of that stuff. So, you know, I know that one of the things that we're going to talk about is numerology, but this is a really beautiful way to run a numerology report on your child, or just a life path number, finding out what your life path and purpose is, what your tendencies, what your triggers and wounding and karma and all that stuff is, and then what your child's is. Because when you compare the two of them, you're going to see where you can support them and where you can maybe help them or where you might provide a challenge for them that you're unaware of. So, um, the two are tied together. I hope I tied them
Yes.
together anyway.
Yes, and I definitely wanna talk about numerology. Before we get to that, the part that you were saying about doing the inner work,
Yeah,
it's so essential for parents to be able to support their kids, to have the courage to do the inner work, and, this is something I talk about all of the time. It's something that I've been doing for years and years and years, and once I think I've done it, I'm like,
there's more.
check the box, I did it, and then something else comes my way, I'm like, guess I didn't finish up. I got more work to do here." And that's what it is, it's just a continual being aware and exploring and being open,
Continually.
connecting with people who can help support you through this whole process. So, yes, it does require inner work. And let's talk a little bit more about numerology. You said
Yeah.
life path number. Tell
Yes.
me more about that.
So the calculator that I use, and there are free calculators all over the internet. Just Google numerology calculator. There's lots of them. But the calculator that I use is based on your birth name, the name on your birth certificate, your current legal last name, and then your birthday. And all of those letters and those numbers are calculated to um, coordinate or assign a single digit number 1 through 9. And then there are three exceptions. Those are called master numbers: 11, 22, and 33. A master number simply means that you are tasked with a greater level of challenge in your life, but also a greater potential for success.
Mm,
So each number means something. One is leadership, two is partnership, three is creative self expression. There's all these different numbers. So your life path is the path that you take in order to align with your intuition, align with synchronicities, align with ease and flow, right? But also to align with those specific challenges. Um, and then you hear people talk about purposes. What's my purpose?
yeah.
Well, purpose is an interest. It's anything that lights you up. So we can have a million different purposes, but we have one path that is going to align us with those purposes in the most sort of fluid way.
All right. So I've given you my birthday and you have come up with my number. So you can give a little example of what like a mini reading is and how my listeners can determine that for themselves. So tell me a little bit about my number.
So you are a life path 8, which is the empowerer. And it's a cool number because it's the infinity symbol, right? So what you put into the 8, you get out of it. The empowerer sort of has two aspects to that life path. One is identifying your own areas of disempowerment in your life, early childhood caregivers or situations, early, adult life situations, and then doing the work in order to flip the script. And then you come out of it empowered. But then the other aspect of that is that then you use that knowledge and that information to help empower others. Yes. And then that's what also brings in the other aspect of the 8, which is material wealth and success. So it's also about having a relationship with power, material resources. If you have a great relationship with money or a good relationship with money, it brings in a lot of abundance and flow. It
Okay.
indicates having, being not, I wouldn't say wealthy, but definitely well off. Um, and if you struggle, a lot of people struggle with their money mindset. It indicates sort of a tumultuous relationship with money only until you get that straight, right? Because we
Mhm.
get that from our parents, our
Right.
money mindset.
Yes.
So,
I have to laugh because that's exactly that describes me exactly. I
yes,
take what I've learned, my challenges in my life, and I help other people who are going through that. That's exactly what I'm doing as a coach. So I love that we were able to provide that perfect example of
yes,
how aligned that is. And so this, I can imagine, would be so helpful for parents who are doing that inner work and who are wanting to heal themselves to be able to align themselves. I love that you're talking so much about how it feels good when you're
yes,
in that alignment. And the truth is, when you feel good and you feel purposeful, you're just going to be a better person. You're going to be a better parent. You're going to set a better example for everyone. So, what an incredible tool to be able to use for that.
It's a fantastic tool.
Yes.
It
And
really is.
understanding your teen too, and having like,
Yes.
if your teen is open to it, helping them understand themselves
Yes.
as well.
I have so many people that will ask me to pull the numerology of their, their teen or their child. So let's say, for instance, you are, and you're 5, your life path 5. The 5 is the free spirit, and that's how you parent. But you have given birth to a Capricorn 1, right? A 1 is the leader. The 1 needs and desires and likes structure. And so if you're not able to, because it's just not in your, your makeup, your human design, so to speak, to provide that structure, if you're more of a free spirited parent, the child, it can struggle and the relationship will struggle. So, once that free spirited parent understands what that child needs at the fundamental level, these are not character flaws, these are character traits that are simply
Yes.
out of alignment. Once that parent understands, then they're like, oh my God, I can parent in a whole new way. It's just a really cool, beautiful process of seeing your own child as a soul with their own path, their own purpose, their own traits, their own, um, you know, sort of, I don't know, qualities that need to be nurtured.
And that's what it's all about, is parenting the child that's in front of you, not the child you thought you would have.
Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So tell me, let's talk a little bit more. And the numerology, there's more than just life purpose when it comes
Yes.
to it, right? Like, I know we could go way deeper. If
Yes.
somebody wanted to get into it and learn a little bit more, what other aspects of numerology can a person learn about and dive into?
There are hundreds of numbers, but if you booked a reading with me, I would go over your life path, your expression, how you show up as that life path, your soul urge, which is also your heart's desire, the thing that lights you up. We go over your personality, how you express your, or how the world sees you, and then there's also a birthday number, the gifts that you bring to the table as this individual person. I go over your karma, karmic debt, and karmic lessons. We go over your forecast for like the next 5 years. Every year presents a different type of energy on a 9-year cycle. It just helps us to grow and keep moving forward, right? And that's sort of the intersection between numerology and astrology. Don't get me started because I'll be on it all day. It's my
Okay,
passion.
yeah, for sure, and it's the depth of knowledge of which you know about all of these different, so when I was gonna have you on, I'm like, "Gosh, there's so many things I wanna talk about." But when you were talking about, to go back to the intuition
Yeah.
and the gut feeling, sometimes for myself, when I am really in a meditative state and I'm meditating and I just open myself to the idea of guidance, and sometimes it just comes to me. Oftentimes for me, it comes like as a voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear something in my head, and
Yes.
I know that some people might see a picture or they might
Yep.
feel something. So, can you tell me a little bit more about that kind of guidance?
Well, clairaudience, what you hear is called clairaudience. It's one of your clairabilities. Clairvoyance, of course, is when you see pictures. So, whenever I work with anybody to develop intuitively, we start out very basic, and I say, how do you receive information? How do you get your inspirations? And they'll say, well, it usually comes as a feeling. Or I'll hear a word and I'm like, okay, well, then you're clairsentient and you're clairaudient. So let's start there. We'll start with your two most prominent abilities, because any higher power that wants to connect with you is going to do so through the path of least resistance, your most predominant clear abilities. So from there, the more that you connect, the more that you connect with that higher power, the more that you ask for help and assistance, the more that you pray or meditate or just have a plain old conversation. I don't pray. I'm um I don't I meditate, but I prefer just plain old, looking at the ceiling like I'm crazy and saying, "Okay, we got to talk." It, it's just how I
Yeah.
do it. So the more you do that, it gives whatever higher power the ability to deliver inspiration or whatever to your intuition, and then those abilities strengthen, and then they allow other abilities to come in, such as clairvoyance or claircognizance, that clear knowing. So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful process.
Would you say, because I know clairvoyance is what like the first term that I had ever heard of before,
Yeah.
and there may be people listening being like, "Well, only certain people have that ability," you know? Is that true? Tell me a little bit more about that.
No, every single human being on the face of the earth is empathic or has the empathic abilities. Now, there are some exceptions. I know that sociopaths do not have the ability to feel empathy for others, that sort of thing, right? But those are very specific. But most people who the general population has the ability to be empathic. We sense others. Like when you walk into a room and you can sense, you can read the room is what they call it.
Mhm.
Or you're in a meeting at work and, you can sense when people are uncomfortable, or you can sense when two people are beefing with each other, even if nothing is said,
Yes.
yes. So I think that's actually kind of fun, right? Like
Oh,
reading people. But that's your foundational energy, is your empathic abilities. And then if you are gifted intuitively, then you also might start to experience HSP, highly sensitive people, or mediumistic abilities, psychic abilities. And then you get deeper into like channeling and then astral travel and all of those really esoteric sort of woo-woo abilities. But most people are empathic, and it's not just for
yeah.
psychic people.
It's just that the foundational level, everybody has that, and it's where you take it and what you decide to be open to experiencing.
Yeah.
And that's something that I experienced in my life. When I started to recognize these things and started to open myself to the idea, I started to get intuitive hits or see things and like maybe be thinking about somebody, and then later on that day I see them and I wasn't supposed to, or they text me and I was like, "Oh, I was just thinking about you." Like those synchronicities happen all of the time. Can you talk a little bit about things like I haven't talked too much about seeing signs in the world, but like seeing repeating numbers
Yeah.
or seeing specific colors. Um, what
Synchronicities.
Yes. How can a person use those types of like tap into that? And what does it even mean?
Okay, so but can we first go back to the fact that you're like, people will call and that, so we're talking, those are higher level advanced abilities. That is telepathy and precognition that you're experiencing on the daily. So if anybody ever tells you that you're not psychic, you can be like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Au contraire.
Oh, that's just not true now.
That's just not true. Not those. Those are some serious advanced abilities. Okay, so synchronicities. I love synchronicities. They're so fun and beautiful. And literally, whenever I query the Akashic records or I work with a client who's intuitively, awakening, spirit always comes through and says, this is how we get your attention. This is how we get you to believe in the magic. It's not all science and, three-dimensional, only what you can see and hear is real. Synchronicities are again, they're little signs and symbols. So recurring numbers, those tend to be sort of the awakening code. When you first go through your spiritual awakening, it's the easiest thing for spirit to get your attention. I remember when I first started, I saw, of course, the standard 1111. And I
Yeah.
was like, after seeing it like 4 days in a row, I'm like, hold on. This
Yeah.
is something's weird's going on here. And I immediately got on the Google.
Get it on Google. Tell me what's going on, Google.
Hit the Google. Why am I seeing 1111?
Thanks.
Um, so that's really all they are. They're cool, they're fun, but they're nothing more than to get your attention. Now, you can also pay attention to what those numbers are, and you can look up on several websites what they mean, because they do mean things too. They have meanings behind them, and they're very cool. And it's usually validation.
Yes, and that's basically what they every time I look it up, because I never remember what any of the numbers are, but then
No.
I'll look them up and be like, "Oh, yeah, of course. You're on the right path," or "This is support for you," and all of this.
Yes.
Yeah, and that I didn't know that seeing numbers is the first thing, because that's actually one of the first things that I started to experience when I
Yeah.
was recognizing those synchronicities. I still do. But can a person also ask to receive certain signs? Is that something that can help them with their intuition? And how might a person be able to do those things?
Yes, and spirit actually loves it when you ask because they're like, "Ah, we have your attention, and you do believe that we can actually help you." Um, honestly, it's as simple as saying, "I need a little bit of insight." I remember a couple weeks ago, no, this was at the beginning of the year, so this was in January. Whenever spirit wants to get my attention or I'm being redirected or whatever, because this is my job, this is what I do. So I'm in spirit, in my head, in my abilities all day long, every day. Um, so whenever they want to get my attention, of course, they mess with my bookings. My bookings will drop off, and I'll be like, "Where are all my people?" Right? And I'm like, So I noticed that that was happening, and I sat down and I opened up my own Akashic record and I opened up my channels to my spirit guides, and I said, "This feels like a test. I feel like you guys are testing me. What's going on? You tell me what's going on right now, right?"
Yeah.
And I always validate um, my hits with tarot,
Mhm.
because tarot or oracle, it's a little piece of paper that you cannot make this up. You just can't make it up. You can't doubt it. So I shuffled the cards, and one flew out, and I pick it up, and I'm not kidding you. The card message was, "You're being tested." And I just started cracking up, and I
That is
put the
true.
card up.
Yeah.
Yes. And I said, "Thank you. I appreciate the validation. Now let's talk about how I can move through this challenge, effortlessly, or what do I need to do to open the gates back up?" And it was just a couple tweaks that they wanted me to do. I don't even remember what it was now.
Yeah.
And everything returned to normal again. So
Yeah.
that type of conversation. Okay. So in the big picture,
Mhm.
when we incarnate, if you believe in the concept of reincarnation, when we incarnate with a team of spirit guides to help us manage our human journey. So that's what they're there for. And it would be so much easier if we could hear them, right? Or see them. But that's not what it is. They want us to use our intuition, our intuitive abilities in order to
Yeah.
communicate with whatever higher power we believe in.
Yeah, to speak to the oracle cards, I can imagine using something like that. It feels very comforting, and it's something I started doing years and years ago.
Yeah.
And to speak to those synchronicities and the things that coming up, there was a time where every time I would pull out my deck, I would pull the same card, and guess what it was? It was entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And this is when I was in my stuck phase. I'm like, "I
Yeah.
don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm ready for something new. I don't know what it is." And I kept getting entrepreneur. And so, fine, here I am. I'm an
Here you
entrepreneur.
are. Here
Yeah.
you are.
And
You
also
listen.
having that comfort of knowing that there's just this team in the spirit world that is there to support and guide you through what can be one of the biggest challenges in your life is parenting a teenager or just being a parent in general, or even just going through the empty nest process. Is just feeling like you're not alone
You're not
here
alone.
and there is guidance for you
Yes.
when you are open to receiving and when you are open to listening and just forming a connection
Yes.
with something higher, and that's basically it's your higher self that you're connecting to.
Yes, and they communicate with you through your solar plexus, which is why they call it your gut reaction, your gut
Mhm.
response. And another way to put it to help people sort of make more logic sense of it is that when we are babies, right, we're in our mother's womb, we are surrounded by the amniotic sac, and that sac has everything that we need to be supported and kept alive and all of that stuff. So when we are born, our amniotic sac then becomes our electromagnetic field, our soul, our aura, whatever you want to call it. And that is energy. So when we die, that energy doesn't go away, it just ceases to support the physical body. The physical body can no longer be supported by this energy. Something's wrong with it, or it's just time, right?
Yeah.
So once you look at it from that perspective, then we are infinite beings because you can't destroy energy. We're infinite beings. So, of course, that consciousness intelligence doesn't go anywhere. So, just because we can't see it or hear it or smell it or taste it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So, that's who
Right.
we're connecting with. We're connecting with, like you said, that higher power,
Mm.
or our higher selves.
Yes, exactly. Higher self.
Mhm.
So I know we've talked a few ways to be able to get connected with your higher self, your intuition, your angels, your guides. One thing that I brought up is meditation. I brought up
Yeah.
oracle cards. How else might a person, any other strategies that you think could be useful?
In teaching people intuitive development, I will say that meditation is the strongest way, because what you're doing is you're giving people, or you're giving yourself, an opportunity to quiet and connect with whatever higher power you believe in. So we've got in meditation, you don't necessarily, I'm not saying meditate like a Buddhist. Who can? I mean,
Yeah.
even Buddhists, it takes them years to be able to do it,
Right.
right? I'm saying go on YouTube, get some headphones, put a search term in for solfeggio frequencies or binaural beats, or just Zen music or whatever. Get a journal and a pen and just start writing or creating art, or whatever it is that you need to do. You're connecting with your higher self. Let words come to you, let phrases come to you, let inspirations come to you. That's one way. And then, of course, my favorite way, and the way that I teach with my students, is I teach them to open up their own Akashic record. Again, it's an energy source. It's not some library in the sky. It's an energy that you tap into, and then you practice or meditate or do tarot and oracle, or goal plan, or plan your business. It doesn't matter, but you're working in that energy, and that's um, what using these abilities is. You're working in the energy of your intuition and your higher self.
Right. And I can imagine, well, and I know personally, visualization helps a lot for me when it
Yes.
comes to that, is being able to visualize the connection with the higher source and like the energy at the crown of my head, but also rooted down on the earth can really help you stay grounded through it all. And just to kind of speak on that, last week I was feeling really like stuck and confused about what to do in this offering that I'm getting ready to launch. And I kept trying to push it and push it and push it and be like, I need to figure this out. And finally, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to step back. I'm going to just do a meditation, open myself up. I'm open to receiving any guidance that comes to me. And then I just walked away. And lo and behold, the actual name
Hmm.
came to me in my dream.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jennifer, that's perfect. That's exactly how it should happen.
Yeah,
Y-
and when you're forcing it, that's the thing I know for sure is even in a relationship face to face with somebody, when it's forced,
Yep.
when it doesn't feel aligned with you, that's when it's time to let go, release the reins, and just allow and be open to receiving. And that's
Yes.
really what you're talking about here.
Yes.
Just
That's
opening
exactly
yourself
it.
up.
And if you know your human design can tell you exactly how to do that in a way that's designed for your energy. So anybody out there that's listening, that's like, oh, I know what human design is, but I struggle with making decisions and or releasing or letting go or opening up or all those things. You can find all of that in your human design. So that's
Yeah,
another cool way.
that's another giant rabbit hole that we could probably
Y-
spend
it-
lots of time talking
It's
about.
it's very, very cool. Very cool. You mentioned visualization. That is one of my favorite ways to manifest, is through visualization, because it's so strong. It's such a powerful practice. But
Yeah.
also some other things that people can do to connect to their intuition is being outside in nature. That's a huge one. Some people, although I don't know what freaks these people are, do it through exercise.
I'm one of the freaks. I'm one of the freaks.
Nope, I did not sign up for cardio. I I want to be on some sand, or,
Uh-huh.
I like to be in nature. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I do get intuitive hits while I'm exercising for
yeah,
sure. It just comes
because
to me and it doesn't have to be like hardcore, but just moving my body.
yep,
It's just like whoop, it just comes to me and, for sure. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Exercising, being in nature, playing, right? Having
Yes.
fun, being in flow for
Being
sure.
creative,
Yes.
writing, when I need to connect, I, go into my studio and I'll make a piece of jewelry. I just wanna do something fun with no rules that I get to just open up my intuition and connect with.
That's so good. And all of this is really helpful. The topics that you've talked about, you've done like a surfacey level. And I know that everybody listening could learn so much more from you on all of these topics. I am going to be definitely putting links to where people can find you. You had
Wonderful.
mentioned booking appointments with you. You talked about how you would work with people on these things. I'll
Mhm.
put links to that. There's
Wonderful.
also your podcast. Anything else that you would like to share with my audience or any other ways that people can learn from you?
Yes, I have a newsletter, so sign up for my newsletter. It's not salesy. Those people that send emails every day, of course they have a team of people to do that. I do not. I have just me, and I do not have time to send them every day. But the newsletters are going to announce any classes and workshops, virtual, local, if you're here in the Portland, Oregon, or Pacific Northwest area. And it'll give you links to the podcast. It'll give you links to what's going on. My goal for 2025 is to actually travel and do local 2-day workshops on various topics in various cities around the United States. That's the goal of the podcast for Fiorelise and I, but also my personal business is doing that with retreats and weekend workshops. So please follow me on the socials on Instagram at Spiritual Tetralogy, and then also my newsletter. Those are the big things to stay
Of
informed.
course. Yes. So I will definitely put links so that people can find you easily that way. Thank you so much for sharing all of this information. It's so fun to talk to you, and it's clear that you are lit up by this topic. It's clear that you're aligned with your purpose and that you are turning it around to help others. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. It's been so much fun. I love this.
I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is the Raising Happy Teens podcast, where you learn how to successfully guide your teenager into adulthood without losing your sanity in the process. Let's do this.